Hey guys, today I'm here to take a look at the new Combat Colin comic that's out in the UK. Now, Combat Colin made his first appearance in issue 5 of the Marvel UK Action Force comic, which is basically the UK version of G.I. Joe. It would reprint the American strips as well as having original UK material as well. Now, Marvel had a tradition back in the 80s of having comedic backup strips for each of their main titles. For Thundercats, I think it was Snarf. For Transformers, it was Robo Capers. For Ghostbusters, it was Slimer. And for Action Force, they went for a military theme with Combat Colin. Here you can see on issue 43, he actually managed to get on the cover a little bit. Now, Combat Colin was basically kind of a survivalist. He was a gun nut. He was really into Rambo and those types of things, and he wanted to join Action Force, but they kept rejecting him, so he decided to just start patrolling the town he lived in on his own and gradually built up a rogues gallery. He also took on an assistant known as Semi-Automatic Steve. The Action Force comic ended with issue 50, and Action Force became a backup strip to the popular Transformers title at the time, and was introduced into Transformers with issue 153. Now, as well as Action Force / G.I. Joe crossing over to Transformers, Combat Colin also made the transition. Now, he had started off with a half-page strip in Action Force, but eventually got a full page to himself. However, once getting into Transformers, he was back to half a page for a while, though eventually he did regain a full page every issue. Now, Combat Colin stayed with Transformers until the end with issue 332. In this last ever story he features in, he actually accidentally kills himself at the end. He gives up violence and decides to throw away all his weapons, which includes a bomb which detonates beside him and Steve. So it's quite a kind of nihilistic ending to the series, though he did make a comeback years later in various specials. And finally, after all these years, he's got his own title. His creator, Lou Stringer, is publishing these collections of all the classic tales from Action Force all the way through Transformers. Now, the first issue here contains every single Combat Colin strip from the Action Force run, and the next 5 issues will contain the Transformers strips. And you never know, maybe after the 6th issue he'll print some new Combat Colin material if this sells well enough. It's £3.50, which is about the average price of this kind of comic in the UK. It's American-sized format, very much like the Marvel and DC reprints are in the UK, what are known as special editions. It's got a cardboard cover in colour. However, the interiors are all black and white. Now, the Combat Colin strips in the early 90s did become black and white because, as a cost-cutting measure, Marvel UK had to make some of the Transformer comic black and white, unfortunately. And I imagine it's for the same reason here, that it just makes it cheaper to print, because these aren't at retail. You have to order them off the website, so they're not being made in as larger quantities as comics you'd see in WH Smith's or wherever. So to keep the price down, I imagine that's why they're being reprinted in black and white, which is kind of a shame, because I think for comic books, colour and vibrancy is very important, but I'm glad just to have these all reprinted together. It makes it really easy to go through them rather than having to pull out each individual issue of G.I. Joe and Transformers just to read the half-page strips or one-page strips. You've got them all together here. Really nice quality paper. The ink quality feels good as well. No issues with the printing or the transfers of the comics. They're all nice and clear. You can see at the back here it's advertising the next issue and other Lou Stringer comics as well. Derek the Troll and Brickman Returns. I like the Lou Stringer logo here. It's very reminiscent of Tales from the Crypt and those EC titles and the sort of EC logo. The top bit as well reminded me of the Tales from the Crypt, that would have like the red background and the title. I don't know if that's deliberate or I'm just sort of seeing that because I'm such a fan of EC comics. But inside, as well as the strips, we've got a history of the character and his appearances on the inside of the front cover, a brief introductory bio of who is Combat Colin, and then the rest of the issue is all the reprints from Action Force. There's also quite a few Christmas stories in here, which is something I always enjoy in comics when they have like a special Christmas episode or story. Now, over the next few issues that are to come, you'll get to really see the evolution of the character. It's quite interesting. In this first issue, we see initially it's just short, half-page, quick comedic strips, and it evolves into ongoing story arcs and recurring villains. We also get to see a lot more cameos as the series goes on as well, from various Transformers such as Grimlock, Blaster, Dreadwing, and a load of Marvel superheroes such as Spider-Man, Thor, Incredible Hulk, Captain America. Doctor Doom had a whole story of Combat Colin versus Doctor Doom. So I guess Combat Colin is kind of part of the Marvel universe. So where's the movie? When's Combat Colin going to be in the Avengers? Really, it would have been funny if they'd have had, during the end credits of one of the G.I. Joe movies, like a Combat Colin skit as the credits were rolling. Probably would have been the best thing in those movies as well. But alas, it wasn't to be. But really, we do need a UK Marvel Cinematic Universe. Get Combat Colin in there. Death's Head. Captain Britain. Now, at the minute in the UK, the whole history of G1 Transformers comics is being printed in hardback book volumes. You get 2 a month, called the Definitive G1 Collection. It's great because the UK hasn't had a decent Transformers comic since the Marvel UK title finished, really. But the one thing that was missing for me was Combat Colin. So it's nice having this running concurrent to the Definitive G1 Collection, because now I'm getting a decent Transformers comic strip and I'm getting Combat Colin alongside it. Now, these have been released every few months. There's not a set release date for them, but there's going to be at least 1 more issue this year, then probably 3 issues next year, and then the last issue in 2019. So if you were ever a fan of Combat Colin in the old Action Force or Transformers comics and fancy a bit of nostalgia, I'd recommend picking this up. You can get them from Lou Stringer's website. I'll put a link in the description below. As I say, if you're collecting the Definitive G1 Transformers collection, this is quite complimentary to, in my opinion, sort of definitive UK Transformers when it's got Combat Colin alongside it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.